Hello, everyone, and welcome to the God Talk Guys. My name is Michael Mack, and I am here with my beloved friend Michael Koran to talk with each other and with you about God, faith, religion, and spirituality, and drawing from faith traditions from all around the world, because we are looking for the truth. We're seeking the truth. And each week at this time...
I was more seeking how to get along with you.
With me?
Yes.
Well, we'll have more practice at that. And in the meantime, we might learn a true thing or two.
Yes.
So tonight, Michael brought a whole mess of quotes.
Restrain your enthusiasm.
I'm sure that if he read them all, we would still have some left over before the show was finished. But I wonder if you could start us with one quote. Just one.
Which one did you like the best? Which comes to mind?
Judge not. How about that one?
Okay.
That's pretty straightforward.
Judge not, lest ye be judged.
Okay. And what's that from?
One of the Gospels. I don't know. I don't remember. Did I write it down? Maybe.
Let's find out.
Maybe.
Research.
Yes.
Now, in good TV, you would have this
judging
on the
already.
teleprompter.
Yeah,
I am judging. Yes, I am. Well, as we were discussing earlier.
This was Matthew 7:1. So there.
Okay, Matthew. It used to be thought to be the very first gospel. And recent research in the last century or so, has determined that Mark is actually the first written gospel, followed by Matthew, who elaborated on what Mark said.
Yes.
But yes, judge not lest ye be judged. So we're talking
this
about...
translation says, don't condemn others. This is more modern. And God won't condemn you.
Okay. And what translation is this? I'm just curious.
This is something like the New International Version.
Okay.
Guessing.
So it may or may not be the New International Version.
Yes.
Okay. So what do you think about that? What do you think about the quote? What does that quote, judge not lest ye be judged, or your variation on it, what does that mean to you?
As best as I can understand it this evening, it means that I can embrace you with love and forgiveness. And the more I do, the more I can be critical. The more I can be tough love. More that I've given you pre-approved forgiveness, right?
Yes.
So whatever you do,
whatever I do,
you're forgiven.
In the past or in the future, it's already forgiven.
Yes, you are forgiven.
Actually, not unlike God in that way, as I understand it. God has already forgiven us.
Yes.
This is what my church, the Catholic Church, professes is true. And when we go to confession, the forgiveness is already there. It's just something that that we go through the sacrament in order to experience and know for ourselves. The forgiveness, we were forgiven a long time ago.
Right.
And that's in fact why Jesus was sent into the world, according to my church, was to heal sinners and to save sinners. And so the forgiveness is already done. But our work in the world is to do good, and when we don't do good, to better learn how to do good in the future. Because really that's where Christianity began, was with John the Baptist, inviting people to go out into the wilderness and confess their sins and start again, be born again, and start a new life. And that's what confession is for me. And somehow I think we got off topic of the judgment thing. So I just want to bring it back to you.
Well, as you said...
Were you right in the middle of something? Did I interrupt you?
No.
Okay.
So with John the Baptist, certainly, and I think with myself, even feeling pre-approved forgiveness, which I don't feel all the time when I start giving myself a hard time.
And are you more likely to give yourself are you more likely to judge yourself or to judge others, or both, or neither, or what?
I mean, I have a killer instinct, which I've learned to like.
Okay.
I used to think it was bad, but I'm an animal.
So you could have been a boxer if you'd gone. You've got that killer instinct.
Yes, or I play tennis with it. I play better tennis now.
Yeah.
So that used to horrify me, because I thought I wanted to be a nice person because I had so much of that in me. So, but now I'm not going to operate on it. I hope. I mean, I hope.
Yeah, you'll channel it in
I think
healthy
at this
ways.
advanced age, I've learned to deal with my killer instinct by hiding from it and doing good.
Because younger men with bigger killer instincts.
Yeah, I like to all kinds. So I can, in my better moments, embrace whatever comes up, which includes hate, killing, and so on, and embrace it, saying, okay, in my better moments, okay, I understand why someone like me would have those feelings and have them be not out of control, but take me over.
And we all have feelings like that. I think it's part of being human, is to have the whole range of feelings, of hate and of love and of jealousy and of envy and pride and the whole, it's part of the package.
Right, but with
being a human being.
as you were saying, with Jeshua and
Jeshua,
my
clarify, please,
Jeshua,
for our audience.
Oh, that's Jesus' real name.
Okay.
He was never called Jesus.
Real name, yes.
Yes, he wasn't. So Jeshua gave us the gift of loving ourselves even with all of those feelings.
Okay.
It was like a hug. It was like my approved forgiveness of you or of myself.
Okay, I need your help in going from what Jesus shared with us as written in the Gospels to the hug. I need...
Oh, I see. Well, it was, he worked with and lived with prostitutes and tax collectors. I taught in prison, and I, if you'll forgive me, loved my prostitutes. I loved them. They were wonderful. They certainly had experiences, and it was such
a lot to write about.
Yes, and such a treat to.
Michael taught writing in prisons for a number of years.
Religion and poetry.
Oh, okay.
And drama, and they certainly had it way more drama than I ever had in my life, and it was a great gift to teach them, all the different religions of the world, because they didn't think of themselves. They weren't educated at all as far as college education was going.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
As someone who has studied and taught
Yes.
all of the great religions of the world.
Or many of them, at least.
Many of them.
Yes.
What is the common denominator? What can you say is true of all of the great religions in the world? Because presumably, all of them together must point to that ultimate human truth.
I mean, you could say, to answer your question, is that probably love your neighbor not your neighbor, but love people as you love yourself. Love, and whatever you want to call it, God or the Tao or life force or something beyond you. William James did that 100 years ago, 110 years ago now. Varieties of religious experience.
Classic.
Yes, he didn't go into Buddhism then, but he discovered that the thing in common was everybody prayed, and everyone believed there was something more that they were praying to, and that there was response to that prayer.
That's beautiful.
Right, Buddhists probably wouldn't say it that way at all.
They go internal, though, in the same way, in a similar way.
Perhaps.
What's important in Buddhism, as I understand it, I mean, outside of the good works, outside doing good and practicing compassion, that there is an inner practice.
Yes, big time.
Buddhists spend time in
Quite
meditation,
something, yes.
going inside
Yes.
and seeing and noticing all of the workings of the mind.
And the Buddhists were the great gifts to me, to be with whatever is going on.
Yeah.
And to be with it, not even try to change it.
Yep.
Okay, I feel like killing today.
Yep.
Okay, let's hold that kindly and see what happens.
And let it go.
And sometimes it grows into, like Kundalini, it climbs up, and I can play better, have a better backhand because of that killer instinct.
I've never played tennis with Michael. I'm not sure that I want to. I want to come back to something one of the quotes the scriptural quotes that you cited just a moment ago, which is to love your neighbor as yourself.
Yes.
And the meaning that has for me, and it's one that it seems foundational,
Yes.
is this, not only this idea that that we practice compassion towards our neighbor in the same way that we practice compassion towards ourselves, but that in fact the two are identical, that our neighbor is ourself.
Yes, one great Indian teacher said that there's really one commandment, because you are me. Right now I'm seeing you more than
Yeah.
except we could look on television, but so I would agree.
Yeah.
And I think compassion is a little different than love. Both are, maybe love is larger. I can have compassion for you and not love you. I feel for you, Michael, but I don't. Or I could love you, and which would require compassion too, I think.
It's like the Eskimos had 30 different words for snow because they were intimately familiar with the different, with the range of what
Yes.
snow, and each experience, each quality of snow made a difference in their lives.
Yes.
Made a difference in the trapping and the hunting and the fishing. So in a similar way, I guess we could say that love in all of its different forms has different qualities,
Very nice.
has different emphases.
Yes.
So caritas, for example, or
Eros.
charity,
Eros.
So yeah, done. End of show.
Eros and compassion are very challenging to have at the same time.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a wild energy, yes.
So here we are, 12 minutes into the show.
Yes.
I guess this is the point where we just stop for a moment and pause. And we could do this in a Buddhist style of simply watching, noticing our breath, letting all experience pass through us. Or we could do it in a more active, a more Western style of invoking the name of God or one of God's aspects. Do you feel called toward one or the other?
A prayer from you would be great if you would like.
I love to take a deep breath before I say a prayer. And in fact, the way that I begin a prayer, typically in the morning or in the evening, is I noticed that you opened your eyes, Michael, because
I did? Oh.
because this introduction is turning into a big monologue. So let me just sidestep the introduction and say, oh.
Wow. I'm touched by that. That was very nice. It's funny, that's a very different feeling from our other conversation. It's very, for me, very much more touching, actually.
There's a liturgy that happens right around this time of year. We're in Advent season. We're approaching Christmas and the Nativity. But there's a liturgy called the O antiphons. And the O antiphons are a way in Christian tradition to invoke all of the different names and features and faces of God. O grace, O love, O mercy, O
Wow.
compassion.
Wow.
But it's this long, wonderful exploration of what they might call in Islam the 99 names of God. And sometimes when I approach prayer, the only word that will come out of my mouth is the one that came out just a moment ago, which is oh, oh, oh. And I like the idea of that because O is a circle. And it's constantly turning, constantly revolving.
I have more questions if you like, Michael.
Ask away. I have all the answers.
So if we have pre-approved forgiveness,
Yeah.
forgive them for we know not what we're doing, right?
Yes, Jesus said that of his persecutors
Yes.
while he was on the cross.
We
Yes.
do not know, and which would
They
be us
know
too.
not what of they do.
And they is us, yes. We don't know.
We have met the enemy, and the enemy is us.
We don't know what we're doing. We don't.
The gospel according to Pogo.
So, how do you connect that with the 12-step program, which says to make a fierce moral inventory and make amends where you can, where it's not destructive, and that is really a crucial step. So when someone forgives, when I do something, all kinds of things, forget to meet someone when I said I would be there, I like to make amends. Say, what can I do? I don't feel good to just say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that the people I taught in prison, those who did not want, I remember one woman who ran over somebody who lost their leg from the knee down, and she was given 7 years.
She was drunk driving or something
Yes,
like
for
that?
the third time, but she hadn't been convicted except 10 years previous and 20 years previous, but it was the third time she was found to be drunken driving, and she was furious. Why should I have to do this? And didn't get, lovely person, bright student, didn't get.
Well, there's this question.
She was angry at the family for wanting her to be in jail for 7 years. And she had cut someone's leg off from the knee down. And
Well, you asked me a question a moment ago, and it's been hanging in the air ever since, and I want to try to respond to it.
I just want to finish this for one moment. And so there's a difference between that woman and another woman I met in prison who had been in prison for 7 years, and she said, 7 wouldn't have been enough. I had a 17-year sentence because what I did, I really needed to turn myself around and couldn't do it in just 7 years.
Well, that is the answer, I think, to the question that you posed, which is why, given pre-approved forgiveness from God or from you, why go through the fearless and searching moral inventory? And
amends.
And amends, doing something about it. So it's a kind of baptism. And as you may recall, John the Baptist, when he invited people from all over Judea and Jerusalem to come out to the River Jordan to be baptized, confessing their sins, professing their willingness to change their lives. I think that's the key part. That when you come in 12-step to a point of recognizing your life is a mess, you've done everything that you yourself can do to try and fix it, and you can't, you need some kind of help from somewhere, whether it be from God or the 12-step program or whatever. You need help. And the searching and fearless moral inventory is a way for us to take a good, hard look at the life that we've been living as a way to, I heard the expression one time, you can't change anything that you don't document. You can't change anything that you don't quantify. Wow. You've got to have a before and after. So what happens when you start the 12-step program is you establish a baseline. This is my baseline. This is the life that I was living.
Yeah.
And now that I've come to recognize that I'm ready to make a change, I'm ready to do the work to make a change, I can establish this baseline and begin again. I can start anew and do the work. Because the thing about pre-approved forgiveness is, as much as it is a matter of grace and something to be grateful for, nothing's going to change unless we are willing to do the work.
So then, if I pre-approve forgiveness, as Jesus did, forgive them for they know not what they're doing, or judge not lest ye be judged, won't that get in the way of someone seriously having to make a fierce moral inventory if they feel they're forgiven?
Because they haven't forgiven themselves.
What if they tell themselves they are? Because they say, oh, Jesus said I'm forgiven. I don't know what I'm doing and I'm forgiven. And according to us, now we're saying, especially you, we need to know what we're doing, what we've done, in order to, so maybe pre-approved forgiveness is the first step in that, to know, before you go to confession, I am going to be forgiven, but I really have to detail what it is I've been doing and work on making it better.
Well, the thing is,
Is that what it is?
if you really, so as somebody who goes to confession often, I can say, even though I know that when I go to confession, I am going to be, I will receive the grace of God's forgiveness. And yet there is something that is sending me to confession. And what is sending me to confession is the recognition that my life is not in order the way that it really ought to be, the way that I really want it to be. There was a life that I used to live, and I can't live that life anymore. There is a life that I imagine, and I want to get closer and closer to that life, to being that kind
So
of...
it seems what we're saying is that forgiveness is a step. It's a process. And yes, it's wonderful to feel forgiven, and that will lead us on the path of a fierce moral inventory and amends where we can, and living as best we can in a better way.
The thing that I notice about confession is, to respond to what you just said, is that if I don't go in there willing to take some kind of risk, willing to say something that I'm reluctant to say, if I'm not willing to go in there and do a little bit of work,
Yep.
the forgiveness that it'll be a cheap forgiveness. I won't feel it in the same way that I feel it if I go in and really go somewhere that I'm reluctant to go to, tell somebody something that I really don't want to tell.
So I've come to the conclusion, we still have wonderful in this discussion, forgiveness is a process. And yes, you can feel totally forgiven, and when you feel that way, you will then be moved, hopefully, or maybe necessarily, to take that moral inventory and make amends where you can. That the forgiveness that doesn't include that is just the first step, at least as I'm understanding it now. And I think for myself. So when I'm giving you pre-approved forgiveness, that's with is this hope, expectation, requirement, that, or knowing you that I know you will, once you understand how you've messed up, come late for a TV show. Who could do anything worse than that?
Are you still remembering that
Yes.
from all of those weeks ago?
And as Kierkegaard said, God.
You haven't given me pre-approved forgiveness, have you?
No, but you were on time this week. As Kierkegaard said, God.
But you won't forget.
Kierkegaard said.
You won't forget, will you?
Soren Kierkegaard said, God not only forgives, he forgets. Isn't that nice?
Okay. So when are you going to forget?
Now.
Okay.
It's gone.
Here's a question, though, and I don't know if we really have time to get too deep into this question is, the forgiveness that you and I are talking about, coming in late or messing up and...
Yes.
I mean, we're starting to get... When you mentioned the woman a little bit earlier who sent somebody, who ran over somebody and when she was intoxicated.
Yes.
And that person lost a leg. We're starting to get into a different level of sin or crime or whatever you want to call it.
Or consequences.
Consequences. Forgiveness around some things is a much, much harder task.
Yes.
And we had the amazing example in this last week, the last couple of weeks with the death of Nelson Mandela. And that we've all had a chance to re-experience through the story of his life, and the lives of many people in South Africa who were experiencing a withering lack of justice. And yet his process, his approach, when he was finally freed and the government, the old apartheid government started to crumble and transition, there was an opportunity. There were many people who really wanted to hurt the oppressors. And Nelson Mandela's call to those people was that, no, we've got to be about forgiveness. We've got to be about reconciliation. That's the only way that
And
we
the
move
hard
forward.
question, and some people are saying this, I'm sure Nelson will forgive me, is he might have been too easy on that forgiveness. Way too easy. because the people in power still have the power, as we know in our country, where we're free, but the people in power. And so it could have been,
I don't know if I agree with you.
I don't know either, but at least some people are saying, including his former wife, Winnie, no. You're just going to let them have the power anyway. It's just going to be.
But they didn't have the power anyway with the new government, with the.
They had, as in our country, the people with money have the power, and he let that be. And so maybe he was, maybe they took advantage of him. Good man that he was, in prison for 27 years. When they negotiated with him, he didn't talk to the ANC. He did it just himself and them. And as I've learned in doctors' offices, thank God I went with my friend Michelle this week to visit Dr. I won't use his name, someone who wanted me to have another throat examination, even though I had one a month before, and she helped me say no. And if I was alone, that would have been much harder. Way harder.
And what's your point?
And so Mandela,
we have 40 seconds.
Mandela talking to the white government might have been not powerful enough to say, yes, I want reconciliation, but you've got to make amends. You've got to make a fierce moral inventory and amends for your oppression of the blacks. Otherwise, they're continuing to do so. The life for the poor black in South Africa is not very good, as it is not very good in America.
Period. With that, we have 10 seconds left.
So that sums it up. Forgiveness needs to be a process. And maybe Nelson Mandela didn't have it be enough of a process.